And if we just laugh at people for having different opinions than us in the church, well, what good is that going to do? We should be inviting people in to say, hey, you feel angry about this. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to episode 103 of the What's the Dope podcast. I'm your host, Pete Dill, and we got a great show for you today. We are going to talk about Harrison Butker and his graduation speech that he gave. Harrison Butker last week gave a graduation commencement speech at Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas, and the whole world went upside down. We're going to talk about it. Usually I talk about some personal things or kind of ease into the topic, or I tell a funny anecdote or something that's on my mind or chest. Today, we're just going to jump right into it because I have a feeling if you clicked on this video, you clicked on this podcast, you want to hear about this controversial moment that happened. I had a lot of drafts of this video. I had a lot of drafts of this podcast. I went back and forth if I should even talk about this. I went back and forth a lot. So thank you for clicking, for listening, for watching, and giving this video a chance, giving me a chance to share my thoughts on this Harrison Butker speech. I appreciate that. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching. And in a time where a lot of people have said a lot of stuff about Harrison Butker, I appreciate you taking one more moment out of your busy day and having this conversation with me. Okay, we're going to get into it. But we're going to get into what I learned. Because at first I said, okay, let's talk about what Harrison Butker said, what he really meant. Okay, no, let's scratch it. Let's talk about what we should do about controversial topics in the faith. Or I said, oh, no. Let's talk about what people who aren't faithful heard versus what people who are faithful heard. I said, no. Okay, let's talk about, traditional Latin Mass versus, our, regular rite Mass. And then what that means in our daily life. No. And nothing sat right with me. But I had this something inside of me that said, I should probably talk about this. So I want to talk about my experience, actually, of this whole Harrison Butker speech and what I learned. Now I'm going to give some context. I'm going to give some context about how I learned this and what it took me to learn, I would say, some pretty valuable lessons from this whole saga, controversy. I don't even know what to call it. But I learned better how to navigate controversial moments in our faith. And I learned better how to deal with other people who have a different opinion than me. And I learned how to understand better other people's perspectives. That's what I learned through all this. And I'll get into the specifics. I've learned some really, I think, great lessons that are just valuable for me. It's things that I took away that was like, wow, Pete, I still have a lot of learning to do. You have those feelings where you have those days or those weeks where you're like, wow, I'm doing pretty good, I thought, but I realized how much learning I have to do, how much humility I need to have, how much I maybe need to fall on my face to draw closer to God. I've had one of these the past week, and all revolved around this Harrison Butker speech. So I learned a lot, and I'll be honest, it was kind of painful or kind of humbling. And I really had to be honest with myself and humble. And I thank God for the opportunity to be humbled. I thank God for other people speaking their mind about this, because I learned some great lessons. Now, again, I really, really, really wanted to talk about the speech and the words and say, this is what you might have missed in Harrison Butker's speech. This is what he really meant. But I'm resisting the urge to give context to Harrison Butker's speech because I think what's more interesting is what I learned, what a fellow Christian learned through all of this, through something that's controversial. Now, if you're not Christian, you're not Catholic and you're watching this and you have strong feelings about Harrison Butker and you think he's XYZ, ABC, 1, 2, 3, God bless. You know, you have your mind made up. So welcome to the channel. You know, this is a great podcast hosted on Backseat Media. Welcome. I hope you enjoy. Click around, see some other videos. But this is from the perspective of a Catholic guy, me. I come from the perspective of Catholic Christian values. So we're going to jump into now the lessons I learned. First, some context of how I learned these lessons. The Harrison Butker speech happens. Oh, it gets shared around. People are saying some things. I said, oh, okay, wow, that's a pretty, he gave a very rousing speech. I said, maybe I can make some videos off of this. People are going to, I'm building a podcast. I'm building a media company. Maybe I can jump on this trend and jump on this hot topic and I can, get some views, get some people to the page, to the podcast. Because not a lot of times that the Catholic world makes its way into normal culture. You know what I mean? It's not a lot of times that, Christophanic or, the Eucharistic pilgrimage that's happening are making its way onto CBS News or to CNN. But boy, did this make its way to the mainstream media. So I thought to myself, I'm building a podcast, I'm building this media brand. I should say something. I should make a video. I made one video that was kind of like a meme, kind of like a remix, kind of like, oh, Harrison Butker says something. Catholics were like, yeah, okay. Kind of making light of it. And then I made another video. So I made that video and that got a lot of views. Okay, it instantly got a lot of views. I was like, whoa, all right. People are commenting, like, oh, yeah, I agree. Or, yeah, we're Catholic support people, Harrison Butker. But then some people started commenting, oh, no, I'm a Catholic and I thought it wasn't good. Okay, whatever, not undeterred. Then I made another video like the next day. And as I saw some of the pushback on Harrison Butker, I made a video. And the spirit of it was kind of like, yeah, people are going to choose to get angry if they want to, something like that. Which, is true, but I kind of said it in the context of like, people are going to see what they want to see with his speech. Kind of vague. I wasn't really trying to take a side, but I just felt like what I was speaking to what I saw other people doing. So I make these videos, I don't think I made another one. I didn't make another one. I made like those two videos. I had one little like thread, on like Instagram threads or Facebook threads or whatever. I made one little thread kind of like, I do something super innocuous. Oh, Harrison Butker, Catholic, some Catholics are cheered and some Catholics are not. I wonder why. And these videos really started going, semi-viral, getting thousands of views, hundreds of likes, thousands of likes, hundreds of comments all across, some of these platforms. And I was like, oh yeah, I timed it. I timed it well. I saw a moment in the media landscape. I made a piece of content on it. People responded to it. That's what I'm supposed to do, right? I'm building a media company. And a lot of people were commenting all over the spectrum. Now, you can imagine what it was. Some people, terrible, you're an idiot, Harrison Butker, okay. I get that a lot with a lot of the content that I make. I make Catholics up, people, comment. It doesn't, I don't really take it personally. Some people are commenting, yeah, let's go, Harrison Butker. Some people are but I also then noticed some people were commenting like, hey, I'm a practicing Catholic and I felt weird about this. So I started getting comments all over, people DMing me and saying different things. Oh, actually, I'm a, young Catholic woman. I kind of didn't like his tone. Or, I'm a young Catholic guy and I felt like Harrison, it wasn't the right platform to say this. Some people, oh, I'm a Catholic homemaker and I thought it was great. Started getting all of this feedback, but something wasn't sitting right with me. The feedback, it wasn't sitting right in my spirit. Like I make these videos and I've gotten a lot of hateful comments. I've gotten a lot of, trolls. People, I make stuff about the faith. I talk about our faith. Like, of course I get a lot of trolls. This was different for me though. There was something I couldn't figure out. why I felt bad and felt weird. It didn't sit right with me, the videos that I made. And I realized this. I made 2 videos. One was kind of making light of the situation, or like kind of like having fun with it. And another one was pushing the controversy onto all of you, all of the audience, saying, hey, you're all getting worked up over here. And what I didn't like about my pieces of content, what I didn't like about my pieces of content was it was very reactionary. But it was very reactionary, and it was pushing it on other people, saying like, hey, if you're angry, that's because you're wanting to be angry. And I had to really be honest with myself. And I had to say, Pete, did you make these videos because you want to join the conversation, give context to others about what Harrison Butker was saying, to draw others closer to Christ? Or Pete, did you make these videos because you knew you would get views and you'd get some followers and you'd get people giving you likes? And I had to be honest. I had to be humble. And I realized I made these videos, I made these pieces of content to jump on a trend. And what I didn't like is that so much of what I made, basically everything I've made, I feel like has come from a place of trying to preach the truth, trying to evangelize, trying to add, good to the conversation, draw others to Christ. But I think for the first time, I saw an opportunity for a moment in the world to benefit me. Ooh, I'll get some views on this. So if I make a video, I'll get some views. And then people come to my page and people will say, I'll click on this video. Maybe they'll see another video and say, ooh, I like this guy. I was thinking about what I could gain from the Harrison Butker controversy. And it was really, really hard to swallow, because people I knew, like other creators online, were reaching out to me. I'll be honest, like creators I've interacted with, like Catholic creators, like the speech didn't sit well with them that Harrison Butker gave. And they were telling me that. And I was like, oh, well, I respect you. I respect your opinion. And you're kind of just giving me your side of the story. And it's not just like, hey, we're Catholic, so we agree with Harrison Butker. And so I said, all right. Well, maybe I have to be really humble here. And maybe I have to be honest with myself and say, hey, Pete, I think I had to be honest with myself. And I said, I misread this situation. I misread this moment in our culture. And I looked at an opportunity to capitalize for me and for Backseat Media Brand, for What's the Dill podcast, by entering the conversation. But it never sat right with me, because I feel like nothing I was doing was adding. It was just stirring division, just stirring controversy, just stirring the pot. There's no sort of hey, and you know what, man, we're all trying to draw closer to Christ. At least we could agree on that. It was like, no, I could look at my piece of content, and I was like, I think maybe this is too, it was just nothing. It was just like a reaction video and a meme video. It was just like nothing. It added nothing to the world. So I had to be honest with myself. I said, man, I think you misread the situation, Pete, and you made content because you felt like you could capitalize at a moment, and it's kind of backfiring a little bit. Kind of it's not going so well. People have a lot of opinions that they're asking me. Now they're pushing it back on me. Well, what about this? What about that? What about this? And I kind of was like, oh, whoa, hold up. I wasn't ready for this much dialogue. I just was ready for some likes and a couple comments and sharing, and that's it. So once it came back on me to kind of really defend my position, I was like, wait, hold up. I wasn't ready for this, or was ready to dialogue. And I had some great conversations in comments or in DMs. I had some great comments with people who, of all walks of life. People, I was talking to this one atheist. They were giving me some great perspective on just what they thought. They're asking what I thought. Do all Catholics believe this? So I had to buckle down and try to give context. to be like, wait, hold up. I can try to explain traditional Latin Mass and what Harrison Butker was talking about, because they were asking me. So then I started to, I started to have to be like, hold on. This is bigger than just making videos for something that's happening in culture. There's a real moment to talk about God, talk about family values, talk about everything that happened, and I wasn't really adding to it in a constructive way with the content that I originally made. So I decided to take them down. I was like, you know what? I need to take these down. I'm going to archive them, put them out, because I realized some things here. And I'll go through then what I learned. I was like, yeah, I think this is overall not productive. I need to have the humility to say, this might not be, if this is the question I had to ask myself. If it's someone's first time coming in contact with a Catholic, they see Harrison Butker's speech, they see my video, and I'm the first Catholic they see, am I drawing them closer to Christ or not? And when I put it like that, I looked at the videos, I was like, this doesn't draw them closer to Christ. I need to take it down. I had to be honest with myself. I said, if this is someone's first time, they're coming back to the faith, and they see me, they see my videos, they see what I was saying, kind of like, hey, like, you're too to be angry. And they see that. This is the first time someone's come back to the faith. They see my video. Is this going to lead them a little bit closer to Christ or not? And it was just clear it wasn't going to. It was just leading them, I don't know, to get worked out. So I archived them, and I sat, and I actually prayed a little bit, and I wrote down my thoughts of like, what have I learned the past 4 or 5 days? What did I learn about this? Seeing a controversy, seeing something in the Catholic faith, seeing someone speak about values of our faith, seeing people react to it, all different walks of life. I make some content on it. People put it back on me. I'm trying to explain different things. I take them down. Whew. What just happened? Harrison Butker, what just happened? So this is what I learned. These are the lessons I learned from my experience of this Harrison Butker graduation speech and what I kind of partook of making content about it. Number 1, I do not have to give my opinion. If no one's asking for my opinion, I do not have to give it. I felt this pressure like I had to say something. Oh, I make content and, podcasts in the Catholic world. I need to say something. I have to say something about this Harrison Butker stuff. That's what I felt. Oh, I have to say something. No, I don't. No, I don't. I can feel this pressure sometimes to say, hey, this is involving the Catholic faith. If there aren't Catholic voices speaking about it, then, what? They need me. Basically, they need me to say something. And I realized, hey, I don't need to say a thing. I don't need to give my opinion, like not just on this, but on everything else. I was like, I have to remember this lesson for the future. I don't need to give my opinion. Even if someone asks it, I don't need to give it. There's this journalistic tactic that newscasters use a lot, which I find like kind of infuriating, but also like people fall for it. They give a really inflammatory statement and just say to the person, so? And the interviewee goes, well, what? They go, we're trying to give you an opportunity to respond. And then the person always responds. And I'm always like, you don't need to say anything. Just be like, yep, I don't feel like responding. Just shut it down. These news anchors on, cable news, we want to give you an opportunity to respond to this controversial statement. No, they're trying to get sound bites and clips and people to respond to controversial things by saying controversial things back. You don't need to respond. You don't need to give your opinion. I literally have learned that 100 times, and I learned it 101 times this past week. I do not need to give my opinion. I did not need to give any opinion on the Harrison Butker graduation speech. No one asked me. Not one person asked me publicly, at least in private. One or, someone in my family asked me, okay. Literally no one asked me. No one that I engage with on social media, on the podcast, asked me about it. No one. I felt the need to go give my opinion. But I realized is a mature faith takes its time. A mature faith takes a beat. A mature faith says, I actually don't need to get involved right now while things are hot. We can talk about this. Let's take a breath. We could talk about this in private. We don't need to talk about it publicly, even if it's a public platform. A mature faith doesn't need to say, I need to get my voice heard. A mature faith doesn't need to get involved. Mature faith doesn't need to give an opinion. I learned that so hard. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting all these feedback, these comments, people saying this, that, and I'm kind of swimming in them. And I was like, wait, like no one asked me to say anything. I'm the one who said something. My stupid mouth got me in trouble again, John Mayer. I was like, I didn't need to do this. It's not like I was asked to go to a panel and I prepared for a talk and a conversation and I gave my opinions and I had some talking points. We had a great dialogue and people saw that and had, no. I just made a video in my living room and posted it and people had a lot to say about it. And then I was like, wait, I didn't even need to give my opinion. So I literally wrote this out. I wrote down a piece of paper, Pete, you do not need to give your opinion. Like, I don't have to. Mature faith says we can wait to have a constructive conversation when emotions are down and when it can be, again, drawn towards Christ, not just stirring the pot, not just being controversial for controversial sake, not just a like it or leave it mentality. So that's one lesson I learned. I do not need to give my opinion. Another lesson I learned. I've doubled down on the mission of Backseat Media and What's the Dill. It's to evangelize and it's to form. Those are the two content pillars. I've been hovering around all of these things about how do we talk about this? What do we talk about? When do we who do we talk to? Excuse me. It became so clear to me. It literally crystallized the mission, the content mission of Backseat Media and What's the Dill, which is to evangelize and to form. And if it doesn't fall under evangelize or form in Catholic teaching, Catholic formation, Catholic integrity, then I don't need to talk about it. I don't need to give input on it. Does it evangelize? Does it form? Is it not one of those two things? Boom. Okay, great. And we all know controversial things aren't always the best evangelistic tools. People being hot about a topic isn't the best way to evangelize them. People misunderstanding Catholic teaching, they try to tell them where they're wrong. That's not formation. Hey, let me just clear up where you're wrong. This is actually what the Catholic Church teaches. Okay, are you formed? That's not how it works. It's a trust exercise for me to say, Lord, I trust you more than the algorithm, where I can make things that are evangelistic and make things based in formation and trust that it's reaching the right people at the right time as its purpose, not just trust the algorithm that I need to make stuff that's like super topical. Oh, and if it's really relevant to the stuff that we make here, then I need to talk about it. It's like, no, actually, it needs to evangelize, it needs to form. That's the true service to God. God's not saying, hey, yo, Pete, did you give your 2 cents on that Harrison Butker thing? Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate that you did. I just wanted to make sure you did. No. This content ultimately is being judged about the lives it touches, including my own. This is all on God's timeline. This is all on the souls God wants to touch and reach. It's not on maximizing the algorithm. It's not on making the perfect piece of content that will reach the most eyes because it hits the perfect algorithm. No. We're not playing by the same rules as everybody else on the internet here. We do not play by the same rules. This is all on God's timeline. This is all for God and for his kingdom. And so we play by God's rules, not by the rules of the internet. So I don't need to feel the pressure here to maximize algorithmic pieces of content. Little by little, making content that is evangelizing and forming people in the Catholic teachings. That is what we make here. So seeing this speech and seeing the controversy, I felt like, well, I need to make something because it's what I make stuff about. It's Catholic. And I realized, nope, the content pillars for What's the Dill Backseat are to evangelize and to form. If it doesn't do those two things, then it's not what we're going to do here. So literally help like push towards a clearer mission and purpose and brand value proposition here, just from the experience I had of posting and everything I just talked about before, which I felt super grateful to God for. I was like, all right, now the next time something super controversial happens, I'm not going to feel the need to say something. And if someone asks me, I can take the time and trust that God is in control, not the algorithm. That, oh, well, I made this video a day late. It would have performed better yesterday. I don't need to play by those rules. God is in control of this podcast. God is in control of Backseat Media. And it's on his timeline, ultimately, of which he chooses to open doors or shut doors for everything that we're doing here. Next point, next lesson I learned was this. We can't force people to feel the same way that we feel. I had some great combos with some gals and guys, but a lot of gals who are Catholic, and some guys too, who reached out to me to give them their perspective on the Harrison Butker speech. And I saw a bunch that were like, yeah, like I agree, it's great, like all these reasons why they liked his speech. But the ones that struck me were the ones that were like, hey, I love God, I'm Catholic, but like I felt a little strange sharing the words because like I feel like being single as a single woman is really sensitive for me. And like I want a husband really badly, and I kind of, it can be hard to hear people just, talk about marriage all the time and just having babies. Or it's like, yeah, I want that, but I don't have that in my life. Or, I heard some girls say, I feel like there can be this hierarchy of, married people, that's the real Catholics, and singles, those are just married people in waiting. And it's like, okay, another example of just this idea of like not crediting single people in our church, but just like, mothers and fathers again. One person said, hey, I've been trying to have kids for years. I don't have kids, really hard in my marriage. And it can feel like I'm less of a wife and a husband because we don't have kids. And sometimes it's like, oh, all these people, all these Catholics aren't having all these kids. It's like, I just want to have kids. So it just felt a little strange to me to hear, they had different feelings than some people. And I had to be reminded myself of that again. I had to be reminded of myself that we all don't feel the same things as each other. And we all experience things a little differently. And that's okay. I had to put myself in the shoes of people who maybe felt a little about Harrison Butker's speech, particularly about like, single people. Because I remember those feelings. I remember those feelings of being told how I should feel. Or I remember those feelings about getting patted on the head spiritually. I remember feeling weird about it. Okay, so what do I mean with this? Like, I remember, asking questions about like theology, or, asking questions about church teaching, asking for more context, asking for what that means, what are some real examples? I remember like hearing stuff about, asking like what the line is, like, well, what about like drinking? If you drink 5 beers one day and 4 beers, if you feel different, is that sin? Is that a moral sin? Just like I was a young kid asked that. And like, I remember I remember adults laughing at me, like in these contexts. I was asking for context on church teaching, and I remember adults, teachers laughing at me as if like, oh, like, why do you care about this? Be like, okay, that's a great question, Pete. Let's try that out. Next time we're all at a thing, we'll all drink 10 beers and we'll see if it's a sin. And I was like, I remember being like 13 years old and being like, I'm not trying to joke around here. I just wanted to know more context. And looking back, I can see how that situation wasn't handled correctly. I genuinely wanted to know more and was laughed at for asking questions about like our faith and the church teachings. I still ask those questions. I'm digging around Catholic Answers. I'm digging around the holysee.com. I want to know answers to our faith. I was a theology major. I want to know the deeper inner workings of our faith. So it's okay to want to know more about our church and its teachings. That's good. And if we just laugh at people for having different opinions than us in the church, well, what good is that going to do? We should be inviting people in to say, hey, you feel angry about this. Let's talk about it. I'd love to share with you about my personal experience with this, why I think this is good. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I also remember a very big controversial topic in our church, that married versus singles tension that is there. Married people, singles. So much tension is always there. And I've been married for a few years now. I got married at 30, which is like 45 in Catholic years. But I remember being single. And I remember just I was a single guy. And I just remember like, I didn't think too much about dating. I just was living my life. And, people that I knew would say things like, hey, you can date now, right? You're allowed to date. Like you should be going on dates. I was like, what? I remember this one person, yeah, you can go on dates now. Like you're allowed to. You can like ask girls out. I was like, what? But well, yeah, I heard you didn't have a girlfriend. Like, you should go on dates. It's like, okay, I'm just like 25 years old. I was like, I don't know. I'm not even thinking about it like that. And also like, how do you know I'm not going on dates? But this one is so random. But I remember one time a married, young married couple, they were married for like 8 months. And long story short, it was New Year's Eve, talking about like having someone on New Year's Eve to like be with. And I'm kind of like, oh, I don't really get the hype of it on New Year's Eve. And one of the persons goes, that's because you've never been in love. And so you wouldn't know the joy of giving a kiss to your partner New Year's Eve. And I was like, that's not what I'm talking about. I was like, why are you making this a married versus singles debate? I literally talked about staying up till midnight to cheers the champagne and then go to sleep. Like, that's what I was talking about. Not about like, hey, like, is true love really worth it on New Year's Eve and into New Year? And I heard that stuck with me for so long. Obviously, it stuck with me for so long. But I just was like, okay, like I remember those feelings. I remember those feelings that we can have. I remember those feelings of feeling like, okay, I'm single. I'm just living my life here. Isn't there any sort of opportunity? Is there any chance here that maybe God's doing something in me that's going to have me be married a little bit later than like 24? Is that a possibility here? Or does everyone just believe that I have to be married by 25? And I remember those feelings. Now, married, have kids, just like, oh, boom, just like some married guy now. What would I know about being single and hearing these things? So I really put myself in the shoes of these people. I tried to empathize with these people who said, hey, like, I was proud of my accomplishments and, did it have to be about, everything is only good until you get married, have a family? I had to be like, I love family values. We need family. Family values are getting attacked. We need to uphold the family more than ever right now. Being a father, being a husband has been some of the greatest things in my life. It's drawn me closer to God. It's made me such a better man. I love it. I'm so happy to be a dad and a husband. But I also had to be honest, like, okay, yeah, that I could see why someone who accomplishes all these things and saying, I could empathize with people who didn't agree. I can empathize with people to say, hey, I maybe didn't take this the best. No one likes to be told how they should feel. And I think sometimes in our church, it can be easy to say, you should agree with this. You should feel this way. You should feel this way. There. One day you'll understand. how many times do we get that pat on the head? There, you'll understand one day when you're older. And I just I had to be real. I had to be real with myself. Okay, I love that, someone like Harrison Butker. I love that Harrison Butker standing up for family values and vocations in the church. I love it. But I also had to say, I can see why people might have maybe not be so enthusiastically in love with that message at that moment. Had to say, Pete, have some humility. Again, not saying Harrison Butker was wrong for sinning. No. Not saying it's untrue. No, very true. But I had to be honest. That maybe people felt differently than I felt. So it was a good reminder for me. It was a good reminder for me. It was a good reminder for me to say, Pete, people are different, and my role in life is not to tell people where they're wrong. My role in life is to draw others to Christ, primarily through my example, not my words. And so I had to say, Pete, people are going to feel differently. Show the love of Christ always. This is not the time for me to then say, hey, well, just to let you know, actually, Harrison Butker's right, and you are wrong. Don't feel that way. I don't need to do that. I didn't need to do that. And then the last thing that I learned is disagreements are okay. Unity is always the goal. We have to stay unified. If my words are going to be dividing people, I maybe don't need to say them, or I need to find a different way to say them. If my words are going to stir the pot and cause division, it might not be from God who's telling me to say that thing. Unity is always the goal, because ultimately division comes from the evil one. So all this division we're seeing, and, again, the roots run deep of why this was controversial, but the division among us in the church, that's not God saying, yeah, y'all hash it out. Go hash it out on the mat. Take them to the mats. No. Honestly, the division, straight up, the division is coming from the evil one. Now, we can have disagreements. That's okay. So disagreements are okay. That's not bad. That's actually healthy in our church to have disagreements. But us versus them mentality, that's not from God. That's the evil one. So we have to watch out. I have to watch out for us versus them. And if I ever have an us versus them mentality, I need to check myself. And that's what I realized I think I started to go towards. I started to inch towards us versus them with some of the videos I made. And some of the narrative I was spinning in my head. Us versus them. That's not from God. God is unity. God is all about unity. So I really felt like I learned all of these lessons. I learned these things pretty powerfully, actually. I hope I've been able to communicate maybe the passion that I feel, or the change that was done in me the past week, because I learned these lessons really left an imprint on me. They really, really did. And I'm glad I kind of fell on my face a little bit, kind of struggled with it, because I feel like these are valuable things to take into every part of my life. And so I'm grateful for our church. I'm grateful for our leaders. I'm grateful for Harrison Butker. I'm grateful for all the people who spoke their mind, because it's hard work, this Christian life. This Christian life is not easy, and we need to do it together. So it's okay if there's some bumps along the road. Nothing is going to stop us. We're not going to let the evil one stop us. We're not going to let lies and disunity and confusion stop us from getting towards the truth. So I encourage you watching, listening, if you have a strong opinion about this Harrison Butker thing, and you come across someone that has a different opinion, I challenge you to listen, ask that person a question, and try to understand where they're coming from. I'm not saying it doesn't. You have a strong opinion about the Harrison Butker situation, challenge you to try to hear the perspective of someone you don't agree with. Because I guarantee there's a lot to learn from everyone's perspective here. So, I feel like we got through that. All right? I was a little bit nervous to talk about this because I think this has obviously stirred a lot of emotions in people. But I feel like we got through that because I feel like I just kept it about me. Kept it about my own mistakes, my own learnings. So that's always good. It's really kind of, unimpeachable, right? When you talk about the things you learn. But we got through that. I think that was good. But I deeply want to know what you think about this. Every single week I ask you to comment or DM me. I would love to know what you have thought about this podcast, my learnings, my takeaways, but also the Harrison Butker thing. Tell me your perspective. Tell me your POV. Tell me your take. Let's talk about it. Let's be respectful, but let's get towards the truth. So leave me a message, DM me, leave a comment, whatever. I'd love to hear from you because I think there's a lot of good that can come from this. And let's not waste this opportunity to learn from one another. I really do feel that. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for being here, spending some of your day with me, spending some of your night, wherever you're listening to this. I appreciate you as always. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Share this with someone, a Chiefs fan. I don't know. Someone hates the Chiefs. I don't know. Pass it along. But I appreciate you all so much. This stuff is, this podcast is so special to have with you guys. And when you watch, when you listen, when you reach out, it's really incredible. So I appreciate you all so much. So thank you again. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace. Bye.